Hi everyone, I hope you can hear me well today, and this is a session where I'm going to talk to you about something which is very critical for you, and that is how to get your 99 percentile. And this webinar is this webinar is about how anybody who's any normal student from any normal background can actually score a 99 plus percentile in CAT. Why we decided on this topic specifically, where we said the part to 99 plus percentile, is because I personally believe that a lot of people feel that it is actually very difficult to get 99 percentile in this exam. But my experience and my perception about this is quite contrary to that fact. If you look at it from the point of view of rank wise, 99 percentile in a 2 lakh people exam, approximately 2 lakh people give the CAT. A 99 percentile means the top 2000 ranks. And as I'm going to tell you, as I'm going to show you today, it's actually easier than you think. And it's essentially process driven. If you understand the process well and you execute it properly, there's nothing that can stop you from getting to that 99 percentile. So, the first things first, if you look at the CAT patterns, etc., we all know that the current pattern of the CAT is about 3 sections, the quants, the data interpretation, logical reasoning, and verbal ability and reading comprehension. And since you have 3 sections, each with a scale score of 100 overall, the total score out of which the exam is marked is 300, 100 marks each. And when you talk about a 99 plus percentile, as you can see on the slide that I have put here, the slide shows you that it's about scoring 180 plus. That's what you need to take care of. And in fact, that's an important aspect because of understanding how to prepare for this exam. Because one of the mistakes I see people doing, especially through their mock tests, and I hope all of you realize that when you're preparing for this exam, you need to actually take a lot of mock tests, and without an adequate number of mock exams, you will not be having enough experience to handle test-taking situations for an exam like this. So bottom line, and during the mock test, what I see the mistake people make is that they start looking at the percentiles they're receiving from various sources where they're taking the mock test, and that's something that you really you should not look at during your mock test series. I think if you want to simplify your CAT prep, just take care of one thing: that no matter what kind of paper, what kind of test paper it is, no matter what kind of question paper it is, whether it's a tough paper or easy paper, you score 180 plus and things take care of itself. And that's the basic essential, what can you say, it's the essential mantra of cracking the CAT. And this has been true if you look at the 300 mark exam. 180 has been the benchmark over the last 5 years or so. Ever since they brought in this 3-section exam, 3-4 years or so, ever since they brought in this 3-section exam, you score 180 plus, you will definitely get a 99 plus percentile. In fact, I have a so as you know, the 3 sections, as you can see here, the 3 sections: quantitative aptitude, 34 questions in 100 in 1 hour. Totally taking care of 100 marks. Data interpretation, logical reasoning has 32 questions in 1 hour, and verbal ability and reading comprehension has 34 questions in 1 hour. And this has been the standard pattern for the last 3 years of the CAT. And as I said, if you can manage a score of 180 plus, you would typically get a score which would range in the 99 plus percentiles. So what I want to talk to you about here, to show you a little bit, maybe there's a little bit of an issue with the screen share happening here. So let's put some numbers into perspective. So I'm first talking about the CAT 2016 paper, last year's paper. And last year, if you are aware of it, it was actually much tougher than the papers of CAT 2015 and 2014. And the band of numbers that you saw at different percentiles, you would see that in the CAT 16 paper, a 99.98 percentile, 100 percentile started getting touched at around 210 marks out of 300, and a 99 percentile was all the way down to around 150 to 155, right? So 150 to 155 was a 99 percentile, 150 to 155 was a 99 percentile, 210 was a 100 percentile. So which means that in CAT 2016 there were approximately 2000 people in that 55 mark range, from 155 to 210. And as I say, that when you're trying to talk about getting through this exam, the journey essentially has been 180. Now this band of 155 to 210, which the top 2000 people scored, this band of 155 to 210 would have changed in the CAT 2015 and the CAT 2014 papers. As I told you, they're slightly easier because especially the DI and LR sections were slightly easier in those years than the 2016 paper. So in those years, the numbers would have been slightly shifted up by around 20 marks. So 175 to 230 would be the range in the CAT 2015 and 16 paper for the same percentile. So you score a 200 approximately, or 180, 175 to 180 in the CAT 2014-15 papers, you will get your 99 percentile. So this band of 99 percentile starts in a tough paper like last year. It starts at 155 plus, and in an easier paper, not 15 and 16, 14 and 15 were not so easy, by the way. But in an easier paper, that would start approximately at 170, 175. So this 20 mark band. So when you're trying to plan to crack a 99 plus percentile, you don't want to be doing it at the borders, and that's why what I put up on this slide, 180 plus is where you should aim at. And 180 plus might seem intimidating in the sense that last year only 300 people got it. 180 in last year's score, 180 was 99.85 percentile, for your information. Now before we move on into how to get this 180, what kind of components you can break it down into three sections, and hence what follows for each of the three sections. Before we do that, one more thing you should understand. When you take a mock test or any other mock test that you are practicing, in all your practice tests, what will happen is that they will give you the score you will get will be based on a +3 -1 logic. That means for every right answer you will get +3 marks, and for every wrong answer you get a -1. So if somebody solves 50 questions, let's say with 5 wrongs, a +3 -1 will give you 45 right and 5 wrongs, will give you 135 -5. So it will give you a net score of 130. That's the raw score. CAT does not take the raw score, it gives a scaled score. Now what is the relationship between scaled score and raw scores? The answer to that is something you need to understand before you start preparing for this exam. Excuse me. The answer to that is that if you are taking a strategy in the exam of 100% correct, that means you're solving everything correctly in your exam, then your scaled score will be larger than your then slightly larger than your raw score. So if somebody solves let's say 50 questions all correct, the raw score turns out to be 150, but the scale score will go slightly higher. It will go to maybe 160s or something like that. There will be an upgrade to the score because of the fact that this guy has been doing everything correctly. And it's fair to do this. Reason is, you'll see the reason. So if you talk about, let's say somebody who solved 60 questions and got 6 incorrect, his raw score will be 54 right, 54 into 3, 162, and 6 wrong, so minus 6. So 152 minus 162 minus 6 is 156. His raw score is 156. But somebody who solved 60 and got 6 wrong, is obviously there's an element of guessing in his solving, right? So that's quite clear. In comparison to somebody who solved 50 and all correct, the guy who solved 60 with 6 wrongs has a strong element of guessing in his solving. So what the software does and what the calculations does, and this is based on on the logic of reading the empirical evidence of the scores that people come out. I'm not privy to the internal calculations, as I should not be, but I'm talking from the experience of having taught students and having seen their scorecards and having worked out how many they solved in a section. So the bottom line is this, that typically if you are 100% correct territory, your scaled score will be slightly higher than the raw score. So if you are, for example, going for a 60 in quants, if you are in the all correct zone, you need to be approximately 18 to 19 all correct. And if you are in the 10% errors situation, you need to get around 24 correct, 24 attempts with 2 wrongs. Maybe that would do it, right? So having talked about this, yeah, 6 wrong and 60 is 10% wrong, and anything more than that, if you are at 20% errors, you are actually going to be actually below where your raw score is. So if somebody solves 60 questions, gets 12 wrong, his raw score will be 48 into 3 minus 12 plus 3 minus 1 logic. So 144 minus 12, 132. But his scaled score will come down to maybe 120 or something like that. Right? So are you all getting this? You understand this logic? So when you are obviously preparing, your percentile is based on raw scores, on scale scores, not on raw scores, and hence there's a very famous saying about the cat, that it's a speed versus time game. It's a speed versus accuracy game, right? And when you're talking about speed versus accuracy game, it is more an accuracy game than a speed game nowadays, right? You cannot spray the bullet around. Right, you have 80 attempts and 20 wrongs. It's not going to work to getting a 160 score. Right? We will be taking questions towards the end of the presentation. We are getting the questions on the that you are sending across, and I don't want to get into questions right now, because of the fact that if I get into questions right now, it kind of unstructures the presentation, because everybody's question is different from what the group really requires, right? So this is what you need to do. So the challenge basically is to do 60 plus in each sections. So what does it take, right? When you're talking about quantitative aptitude, Ankesh, as I said, I'll be taking questions towards the end of the section, to end of the presentation. It's not going to happen now, right? And Shaunak, I really don't know what kind of tricks and methods you are expecting. This is more of a strategy session, and my focus is going to be on strategy of how to prepare for this test, because in a 1 hour framework you cannot do the tricks that you would normally teach across a 200-hour course. And even if I do a couple of tricks, it will just give you a brief glimpse into it and it will not be valuable as much as getting a strategy right would be. Right? So, coming back to strategic issues. So if you look at my quantitative aptitude for CAT book, I have divided my portion into 6 blocks. Block 1, Block 2, Block 3, Block 4, Block 5 and Block 6. So what you need to do is you need to organize your prep so that in any of these blocks, if you are given around 6-7 questions, you should be able to solve all of them. You know, the difference between a 100 percentiler and 80 percentiler, what's the difference? The difference is that if you, for instance, for 200 percentiler, if you give across 8 questions, 8 question test on number systems and progressions, block 1. If you give him 8 questions, he would be able to solve on an average 7+ questions. But an 80 percentiler, if you give him 8 questions on that block, he would be able to solve maybe only 4 to 5. So the difference between, or maybe even lower, maybe would be bordering around 3 to 4 out of 8. And when you're preparing, why I talk about a randomly selected set of 7-8 questions? Because if you look at it logically, if we divide our portion into these 6 blocks and you try to look at what the CAT structure has been, so typically what will happen is from block 1 you will get around 6 to 8 questions on an average in the CAT exam. Block 2 and 3 combined will also give you around maybe 8-9 questions. So you can prepare for block 2 and 3 as one go because they're all word-based chapters. Block 4, geometry and mensuration. Block 4 would have typically around again 7-8 questions that you will get. Block 5 will also be 7 to 9 questions, and block 6 will be maybe 2 to 3 questions. So the breakup is 7, 7, 7 on an average, 7, 7, 7, 8, 7, 7 and 3 to 4. So that's a typical breakup of the CAT exam. And as I said, if you are in a 10% error, see, it's very difficult to come to a point where you're saying that I'll solve everything correctly, because under pressure and in the exam situation, you are bound to make some mistakes. So if you take a 5% error approach, that okay, I'll solve 25 questions, I might get 1 or 2 wrong on an average. So if you are in that zone, you will need to solve around 26, 27 questions. And if your skill level is, let's say, if I give you 7 questions on number system and progressions, and your current skill level is that out of 7 questions you can solve only 2, then where are you going to get the attempts from? So the whole idea is when you're preparing a chapter, how should you study? Right? You see, the easy to moderate, I'll talk about that, Tushar, a little bit later. So my question is, how do you study? And I personally believe that most people miss out on the correct study process for this exam. And if you can get your study process right, you'll be able to turn around any chapter. So a few principles about the study process. The first of that is that when you're studying these chapters, if you go through the university exam preparation mode. What is the university exam preparation mode? The university exam preparation mode was that you study the chapter, you study the theory, and you do a few questions and you move on. If you do it that way, you are not going to even scratch the surface of the learning you will want. The learning in the CAT, when you're talking about the CAT exam, learning is 80% driven by questions and what you learn out of the questions and the situations thrown by questions. So what happens in an exam like CAT is that if you, for example, in number systems, if you go into the exam after having solved 200 questions and the depth of the number systems chapter is around 800 questions, if you have solved only 200, it's very, very easy for the examiner to surprise you by putting questions which you don't understand, or by putting situations which you will not understand. And the moment that happens, your attempt and correct and time equation in the exam starts getting imbalanced. So you need to make sure that that imbalance should not happen, right? And hence there is a particular depth there's a particular depth to which you need to go to in every chapter. So from a good source, for example, if you look at my quants book, I've divided my questions into easy, medium and tough, LOD 1, LOD 2 and LOD 3. So if you look at it, CAT will actually give you a sprinkling of easy and tough questions. It's incorrect to say that CAT will only have tough questions. There'll be a sprinkling, there'll be a mixture of easy, medium and tough questions. And the difference between a tough exam and an easy exam, the difference between a tough exam and an easy exam is basically that the number of tough questions would vary. So in an easy exam, out of 34 questions, you'll get 6 tough questions. And a tough exam, out of 34 questions, you might get 12, 13, 14 tough questions out of 34. So when you look at it that way, it does not seem that it's too tough because you still have 20 easy questions, but it affects you greatly in terms of the way you're solving the paper. So when you go into the test paper, if there are 14 tough questions, on an average, every second question will turn out to be tough. So your experience of solving the exam will be like, you took the first question, it was easy. You picked up the second question, it became tough. So you couldn't solve it. The third question also turned out tough. You couldn't solve it. By the fourth question, you are facing psychological issues. You're facing nervousness. Even though it was an easy question, you couldn't get it right. And the fifth question comes tough. And suddenly, what happens is you have spent 15 minutes and have had only one attempt. And one more attempt which you are not sure of. So that's what happens when they put in 14 tough questions out of 34. Right? And I'll tell you about DILR as I move there. But bottom line is that there is the case of the CAT ranking is based on scale score. Right? So what is the bottom line? The bottom line is that your number of questions, first of all, two things. It is about the quantity of questions you have done. And second, it's about the quality of learning you have extracted from the questions. If you ensure these two, quantity of questions and the quality of learning, if you can ensure these two, then you are, I think, sorted out. So I can tell you the quantities. Quality, of course, is a longer story. The quality of extraction, because that's something that will have to be shown through questions, which we don't have too much time for, right? So if you look at block 1, the number of questions required would be, for number systems, maybe around 700 to 800 questions is the ideal number. Progressions, if you have a book, if you have a pen paper handy, maybe you can take these questions, these numbers down, because this is information you might not get anywhere else very, very easily. Yeah, Ajay, I would think that my book would be sufficient to get you to a point where you can aspire to solve 26, 27, 28 questions out of 34. If you do that all correct, you'll get a 100 percentile. Because last year's quants, I'm just checking my score sheet that I had with me, which I wanted to share, but there's some issue with the sharing screen today. But it's in last year's quants section, around 75 was a 100 percentile. 75 marks. So 25, 26 all correct would have got it. Right? So the numbers would be, progression would be around 200 questions. Average allegation together would be around 200, 250 questions. In the block 3, the total number of questions you need to solve overall, all chapters combined, with around 150, 200 in percentage, 150, 200 in ratio proportion, around 75 in time and work, and around 250 to 300 in time speed distance. That's an important area, right? So, and then block 5, geometry mensuration would be around 300 to 400 questions overall, with around 300, 350 questions of geometry, and around 100 questions, in terms of the mensuration part. Block 5 functions is a total of around 800 questions, I mean, that's the number that would start giving you value in terms of the test. Functions would be around 250. Inequalities would be around 100 questions to solve. Logs would be around 50 questions. Quadratics would be around 250, 200, not just quadratic equations, the complete equations as a chapter. Quadratic and other equations would be around 200 to 250 questions more. So that would be around 600 to 800 questions. And block 6, permutation, combination, probability and set theory would be, PNC would be around 150, probability around 75 to 100, set theory would again be around 50. Ayush says that all these is already printed in your book. Are you going to discuss how to learn? How to learn is something which I have covered extensively, Ayush, in the books. If you read it properly, you will start getting a lot of that content there. So this is broadly what you need to do in quants. Now to give you a hint, I'll not close at this point in the quants part. I'll give you a small hint about how you should actually go about learning. So what happens when you're solving your questions? In every question, I tell this to my students and I tell this to my readers. Every question is broken down into parts which are actionable. So what happens is that in a maths question, the question itself will tell you what to do. And the difference between a 100 percentiler and a 70 percentiler is that the 100 percentile knows how to listen to the question, and the 70 percentiler does not know how to listen to it. Right? Logs, Karthik, maybe 1 or 2 questions at max. So a 70 percentiler would not know how to react or would not be able to listen to it, right? So when you're talking about prep processes, what you need to do is your biggest source of learning is going to be questions you can't solve. So there will be broadly 2 sources of learning you will have, and this will be true for DI, LR as well as quants. They are the 3 solving areas, right? So when you're talking about these 3 solving areas, data interpretation, logical reasoning and quants, if you're solving a decent set of questions from for example, a book like mine, if you're solving a decent set of questions, what will happen is that you will find some questions which are easy for you, some questions which you are able to solve but they turned out tough, but you could solve them, and then there are other questions which are beyond you. And in the questions which are beyond you, there are 2 types. One which is completely beyond you and the other which is slightly beyond you. So the learning opportunities for you will be in the first 3 categories of questions. So something which is completely beyond you, in which without assistance you can't think, maybe you can try to ask someone how to solve it, but that's not an ideal learning process. The best way to learn is 3 things. The first question type, things that you could solve easily. You go back to those things, to those questions, and you try to think of whether you can do them better. Is there any way to do them better? Right? So that's the first dimension of your learning. So when you start doing the question second time, you might be able to see that, okay, I solved this through an equation. Maybe there's a numerical way to think about it. Maybe there is some kind of logical way to think about it. Maybe I should have been able to react earlier. Maybe the way I solved the equations was wrong. So broadly, you will find shortcuts in the reaction to the statements within a question. You'll find shortcuts of how to solve equations. The same equations can be solved verbally rather than simultaneously through simultaneous equations. And you will also find methods where you will be able to calculate faster. Right? So these 3 dimensions you will try to look for. I'm just trying to tell you what you look for, and both for quants, for all 3 quants, DI and LR, for all the 3 areas, the learning, as I told you, the maximum amount of learning will happen through questions. In quants, question-based learning is 80% of your work. In data interpretation and logical reasoning, question-based learning is 98-100% of your work, because in data interpretation and logical reasoning, there's actually no theory to study. Right? There's actually no theory to study, and everything you learn is learned through questions. Everything you learn is learned through questions. Right? So bottom line, coming back, when you're talking about, and in the same way, just like I said, that out of 7, how many can you solve? That's your measure to tell you whether you are prepared for the exam or not. So if till in a section or till in a chapter or a group of chapters, you are in a position where out of 7 you are doing only 4 or 3, you need more work there. And what work it is are the 3 kinds of learnings. So what are the 3? The first one I've told you, I have not talked about the other 2. And this is the same process you'll use for DI and LR. That you go back to I said 3 kinds of questions are the learning opportunities for you. First is questions you solved easily. You go back there, find faster ways to do it. Right? Second is slightly tougher questions. Questions that you were able to solve yourself, but with some difficulty. They didn't happen in one go with you, but you faced a little bit of chance or a little bit of stress to do it. So the learning opportunity in those questions will be 2 again. There will be 2 types. One will be actually the process you actually took to get it through. Make sure that you go through it a couple of times more, so that process becomes ingrained. Okay, if I face this is how I should do it. So next time you do this, it should become easy. The next time you do the exact same thing, whether it's the same question or the same structure of thinking in a different question. You understand what I mean? What happens in CAT, which is different from other exams, is about if you've solved 200 questions in number systems in a different exam, in a lower level exam, you will find that exactly the same question is asked. But inside an exam like CAT, what happens is you have twists where they don't ask you the same question, but they don't change the logic. The logic remains same. So track the logic and try to break down the question. Okay, this question led me to 3 points, and each of these 3 points, this was the thought I should have. Right? So that's the second point. So I'll take up questions once I finish the verbal discussion. I'll have a short discussion on verbal also. So your second learning dimension was the questions which were solved by you but solved with difficulty. So in these questions, there are 2 kinds of learning. One is making sure that the thought that you were able to execute after some difficulty, that becomes your ingrained thought first of all. Next time you should not have difficulty in executing that thought in a similar situation. Not necessarily a similar question, same question, but a similar situation you should be able to execute the thought. And the second learning opportunity is there any better thought? So you go back to the question, try to work out, try to break down the question into parts and try to see at what point can I think better. Because if there's a question that 100 percentile can get in 40 seconds and you get in 2 minutes, there's some things he's doing better than you. So there's always a way. And you'll find a lot of those ways. I've given enough hints and enough thought processes through my book, especially if you look at the training grounds which are there in my DI book as well as my quants book. That is a very, very valuable resource for anybody preparing for this exam, where I've shown you exactly what thoughts are required while solving the test. Right? So that's the second point. That's the second dimension of learning. So 2 dimensions there. You got that? The first dimension was making sure that the process that you solved with difficulty or executed with difficulty becomes your normal, natural process, and then looking there again whether there's something more. Right? And the third learning availability is questions which you are not able to solve, but which are just slightly above your reach, or maybe a little bit above your reach, but you still can think about it. Maybe you're 1 or 2 thoughts away. So those questions become really valuable resources, because that is what will take you from 4 out of 7 to 6 out of 7. Right? Don't bother about the questions which are absolutely out of the world. You can't think about it at all. There'll come a point of time in your prep process, in your learning process, where those questions will become slightly outside your reach. So your first target of questions you are not able to solve, break it into 2 parts. One part will be questions that you have a little bit of thought in, but there are couple of missing thoughts. And the second is questions in which you have no thought, or maybe you just have a couple of thoughts and the other things are completely blank for you. So the third learning opportunity lies in this first kind of question, the third kind of question. Questions where you have something in your head about it, you have reactions, then you start breaking that question down. Break it into subparts, break it into steps, break it into this thing. And if you are trying to learn through someone, you have a teacher, you have a friend who's better than you at those things and he's able to do it, or you have the solution part of something written in my book, then try to work out how was that person thinking differently at that point. Don't try to look at ki solution kya hai is question ka. My problem with most people is that they focus ki solution kya hai, give me the solution. The moment you do that with a question you're not able to solve, you're getting rid of a huge learning opportunity and you're wasting it. I often tell students that the biggest gift somebody can give you is 100 valid questions on which you should learn. That's the biggest gift. That's the biggest gift that somebody can give you, because that's where so if you pick up, if you are out of let's say 4 out of 7 in a area, in a question type. Maths is about chapters, DI and reasoning are about question types. So if you're at 4 out of 7 in a question type or in a chapter, and you pick up a set of 50 questions and you can solve all of them, then that's bad news, because where have you learned? You picked up questions which were within the 4 out of 7 capacity. So your capacity has not grown. The great news happens when you can't solve a question, and that's where the learning starts. Please understand that. Right? Yeah, old editions from 2000, I think I keep changing my books every couple of years, and every edition changes by around 20-30%. So from a 2005 edition, Karthik, definitely there will be a huge change. It will be a totally different book. Even from a 2015 edition, the Quants does not have a new edition, but DILR we have a new editions this year. And why I've done that is because DILR was quite tough last year. And as I told you, if I look at the numbers again, as I told you, Quants at 75 was 100 percentile, DILR was 100 percentile around 67, 68. It's almost 10% off. Right? And in fact, at a score of only 30 marks, 30 out of 100 in DILR, you scored a 92 percentile in DILR last year. Right? So make sure that you understand the dynamics. So maybe before I close this part and I move into verbal, otherwise I'll not have any time for verbal, because I have to put some time for questions and answers. So maybe before we get there, I'll just very briefly, apart from the process of study will remain same. The process of learning will remain same. It's through questions. As I told you, Quants is 80% learning through questions, 20% is the theory. DI and LR is 100% learning through questions. So the learning extraction becomes the key factor, right? And Anjan is asking an important question in this context. Understanding how the formulas are derived is important, or just knowing the formulas are fine? Anjan Agrawal, I think that's a very important, relevant question, which is I'm taking it now. It depends on the situation. Right? So for example, let's pick our formula. N plus R minus 1, C R minus 1. The distribution of n identical objects across R people or R groups. You really do not need the derivation there at all. The reason you don't need the derivation is because they can't twist that situation too much. Right? But let's say how many squares are there, how many rectangles are there on a chessboard? 1 cube plus 2 cube plus 3 cube plus 4 cube plus 5 cube plus 6 cube plus 7 cube plus 8 cube. That's the answer. Sum of the first 8 natural number cubes, which can also be done with 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 in one bracket multiplied by itself. That's the number of rectangles on a chessboard. There you need to know why that formula works, because instead of a chessboard, if I ask you a 5 by 7 grid, chessboard is an 8 by 8 grid, but if instead of a chessboard I give you a 5 by 7 grid, what would happen? A 5 by 7 grid you would need to know the breakup of how that formula got derived. So you need to perceive in which formula you need just the what to do is enough, in which formula what to do has to be supplemented by why you do it. So you need to perceive that as you move through your preparation, right? So the answer to Shreya's question, how can we people who are not good at mathematics work on quant? The answer is very simple. Break it down. Break your questions down, and as I said, if this is the large circle of questions and this is what you can solve, focus on the circle just outside that. Don't try to do these questions, and don't get intimidated by them, by people who can do it. See, the turnaround process, the turnaround time for any chapter or any question type is not more than 30 or 40 hours. So if you're very poor at a chapter or a topic, if you do the right things for 30 to 40 hours, you can actually change your fortune with that topic. It is not about studying for a year. Please understand that, right? 100, for example, turnaround times, permutation combination, one topic a lot of people are intimidated with, permutation combination. The turnaround time, if you're taught correctly, is not more than 15 hours. 4 to 6 hours of understanding theory, and maybe 8 to 10 hours of your own practice, and you will be able to solve any question of the CAT in the last 20 years. By the way, that's another good way to look at how good your chapter is. So when you want to test how good your chapter is and you need to do more or you're okay. So another benchmark is you can look at the last 20 years of the CAT exam and the ZAT exam and other parallel management exams, and try to see whether you're having a problem solving any of those questions on that chapter. So suppose you have done time split distance, and you look at the previous, you have studied time split distance, and look at the previous 20 years paper. Of course, CAT after 2009 you will not get, because they don't allow you to anybody to share those questions. But similar questions you'll find everywhere, even in my books and even on the web. You'll find questions which belong to the same kind of category. Nobody can tell you that this was a CAT question, but logic nobody has a copyright on. So you'll be able to find similar questions. So what you can do is that if you pick up 15-20 years of paper, let's say CAT you pick up from 1990 to 2008, those papers are available. So if you pick up those 18-20 years of papers of CAT, and then you pick up the ZAT papers and the IFT and maybe the NMAT papers of the past years, and you segregate all the time split distance questions, and you try to see whether you're having problems solving those questions. So if you're not having a problem solving 20 years of papers, then you will not have a problem solving CAT 2017 or 18 for that matter. Right? And a lot of people asking me these questions, is 4 months good enough? 4 months is great, it's good time. Right? Because see, this is an exam, you need to understand, this is an exam. I told you, you solve 20-22 questions out of 34. That means every third question you can leave. You only need to solve 20-22 questions out of 34. Right? And you are topping the exam. Which other top exams allows you to do that? You solve only 60% of the paper, solve only 2/3 of the paper and top the exam. Right? So Sonali, it's not about how many hours you study every day, it is about the work you need to complete. So data interpretation and logical reasoning, the key skills will remain consistent and you will find them in the first 300-400 sets. So DI requires interpretation skills, it requires calculation skills, and no matter whether the calculator is available or not, you will still need to do a lot of calculations off the cuff. You cannot go to the calculator for every small bit of calculation. You should avoid doing that. Right? So 38 plus 43 plus 74, you should not be going to the calculator for it. Right? Yeah, if you can learn well, Arpit, my book should be sufficient. A lot of people tell me that they just read my books and cracked this exam. So very briefly, I'll talk about verbal, because that's another very critical part or area for all of you. And obviously, you can't crack this exam without verbal. Now, verbal is, if you look at the pattern of the last few years, I'm just going to talk 5-7 minutes on this, and then I'll pick up the questions. I have around 10-15 questions in the chat, plus the question box. So some of you put the question in the question box, so I'll look at those also. So in verbal, key skills to develop, basically if you look at the last, not just 5 years, last 10-12 years of the CAT paper, it is not so much the vocabulary or the word level understanding that matters. It's about comprehension and comprehension and comprehension. The bottom line is comprehension. So hence what you need to do to take your verbal score, and there are two parts to verbal prep actually. One part is improving the quality of your understanding of text at a general level, irrespective of your exam question types and anything else. Just the ability to understand what the author is saying, and first starting off with understanding, but moving on, it moves into predicting what the author is going to talk about. So if the author is, let's say, he's changing his tone from a positive tone to a negative tone, there will be a word or there will be a point in the passage at which that change will be visible to you, that okay, he's maybe put this word there, and that kind of, for the good reader, that word gives him a precursor that this author is going to change or turn around somewhere. So good readers are predictive readers, poor readers are reactive readers, and really poor readers are not even reactive readers, they don't even understand after reading twice. So good reading, what does it mean, is that you are able to x-ray the idea of the author into your own mind. A good reader, if he reads a paragraph or a passage today, he'll remember it 2 years later because the idea gets stuck in his mind. The image, the ideas are always stored in images. Right? So what I mean to say is that suppose I ask you, parajumbles, reading comprehension, all of them depend on the ability to comprehend what the author is trying to say. If you can't formulate the idea, you really can't make it out. So if somebody gives you a picture with four subparts, the head of a person, the neck of the person, the body of the person, and the legs of the person, you'll know where to put them because you can see the picture of how the person should look. Right? Parajumbles are very similar to that. If you can't visualize the idea that the author is saying, there's no way. The small tricks, etc., can get you from a 60% right to 70% right, but they will never take you across completely. And hence, much more important than solving. In Quants DILR, it is about solving questions. Data interpretation LR, make sure you solve at least 500 sets. And in the DI book, there is a section called Challenges in DI, which has over 100 questions, and I've added more questions this year in the new edition. That will give you a feel of what the CAT has been. So if you do that in the last couple of years, it will give you that feel. If you do that, plus you do the questions from the previous year papers, etc., given in the last part of the archives part of the book, that will take care of what DI or what difficult DI has been in the CAT last couple of years. So coming back to verbal, it's about improving your comprehension. It's completely built on comprehension. So what you should be doing is, parallel to all your preparation, you start picking up small chunks of reading material. Small chunks, not novels, not books, because if you're preparing for CAT 18 or CAT 19, you can start reading books. But if you're preparing in a 4-month context, then you need to first get your ability to understand sentences and paragraphs up. Right? And if you start reading books, what will happen is that you'll be able to just design your mind for one kind of author at one kind of level. Because you'll not have time to read more than maybe 10-12 books in 4 months' time, given the fact that a lot of you might be working, a lot of you might be preparing for this exam along with studying for your graduation, etc. So given that these facts, you might not have time to do a lot of books. Hence, if you are trying to improve your comprehension, ability to understand text in a shorter period of time, it's going to be about the quality of how fast you pick up. Right? It's not just about quantity. So if you focus on improving the quality of your comprehension, what you should be doing to do that, maybe a couple of exercises I can suggest for you. One exercise you can do is, you can pick up small chunks of reading material. So pick up paragraphs, pick up short passages, pick up 800 word passages. Sources could be editorials, sources could be quotation websites. So if I open a website on quotations and let's say I read a page called motivation, I'll get hundreds of quotes from different authors who are talking about that. Instead of that, if I put a general all quotations with no filter like motivation on it, then what I'll be getting is I'll keep getting text of various speakers and authors and personalities who would have spoken about different issues. So my mind will have to keep reacting to things. And the basis or the bottom line in comprehension is the ability to understand a sentence. If you can understand a sentence, you can understand a paragraph, because a paragraph is a group of 5-6 sentences. And of course, to understand a sentence, you need to get the vocabulary in place. So vocabulary in place will happen automatically as you keep doing this. You don't need to sit down with word lists, etc. Although maybe you can do maybe 5, 7, 10 words a day kind of thing. Your mind does not have the capacity to memorize 100 words a day. It's difficult to do that. But so that might help a little bit. But the game changer will essentially be what you do is, as you grow your quality of reading, the language which will be used, the words that will be used will start growing along with it. So there'll come a point of time, if cat level is here, you start reading above it and understanding above it, you would more or less get it. So to give you a small benchmark, cat picks up articles from magazines like Guardian and Economist and those kind of stuff. And if you are just a Times of India or a Hindustan Times level of reader, you will never get the language at that level. So you will need to get used to that. So there are two dimensions to preparing for verbal. So as I said, small articles, articles.com, websites like that, go to Guardian, follow blogs of great writers there. So in the internet age, you really don't have any paucity of great stuff on the net, right? So and the other part, of course, is learning how to solve. So learning is maybe 2 months, 3 months time. If you can comprehend, there's not much issue in solving. So if your comprehension is in place, then learning solving becomes the second priority in verbal. So learning solving, you have to make sure you understand the question type, you understand what's key in that question, what is the process of handling it. So para-examples, for example, without options and with options becomes a very totally different ball game, right? So so that's about it in respect to what I wanted to speak. So I'm now going to go into questions. And verbal 100 percentile last year was around 87 marks. Sonali. Number of marks, Mridul, to attempt would be approximately, I would want you to do at least 20-25 marks minimum. Ankesh has been asking me this question for a long time. I'm just trying to. Ashwarya is saying, is it necessary to practice LOD3 from my books? If yes, which chapters? LOD3, I think the critical chapters number says block 1 completely, yes. You can in block 2, 3, you can do the averages LOD3, you can do the time speed distance, no, not time speed distance. Time speed distance LOD3 is quite tough. Time speed distance, I think LOD1 and 2 are enough. But averages and ratio proportions you can do from block 2, 3. Block 4 you do everything. Block 5 you can do the LOD3 functions and all. Right? Shaunak, basics are not clear. You'll obviously need to start from the basics. You need to take a call about whether you need to go into your NCRT books also to do the basics. If your basics are so poor that you don't remember your school maths at all, maybe that's a good point to start. How to choose caselets in LRDI? Important question from Harshit. So you need to be able to perceive in the first 3 minutes. See, in LRDI, you actually walk in blind into a question, and the difference between the 100 percentile and the 80 percentile is basically that the 100 percentile will know within 3 minutes that this question is not to be done, and 80 percentile realizes only after 8 minutes. So that's the gap. So you will need to perceive during your first reading. So becoming better at your first reading becomes a critical skill. IFT is about simple questions. Verbal, you can use my book, Sudeep. Hindu editorials are maybe just after Times of India, above Times of India, right? So after Hindu, you can actually go into some international publications, as mentioned. Diverse reading of subjects, as I said, keep picking up small content. Ankesh, can you put that question again? Your question has gone up, way up, right? Harshit, you can check. So Ankesh is asking me this question. I'm pursuing an integrated course of BTech MBA from Galgotias. It's a private university. Will that be worth? See, you will have to make it worth, right? Don't do an MBA from. See, if you have taken an MBA call from Galgotias, you'll have to make it happen from there, right? So there's no this thing. Of course, you'll not get the kind of starting off as an MBA from an IIM, etc. But then you can work up, or you can actually look at doing a second MBA, right? So this is not about people who are doing an MBA. So I'll not go more into your question because it might not be worth others. The economist articles are quite good, and Guardian especially. CAT does ask a lot of questions from Guardian. You can look at the fresh questions which have been set up in the 4th edition. Yeah, DILR should be sufficient because last year's paper, almost every possible scenario that they created in the DILR was more or less covered. So I'm also picking up the questions from the question log. There are 12-13. Mock score is 70 to 80. So how do you improve? Mock score is important. Pulkit is asking me this question. So how do you improve your mock scores? If mock score is in the 70-80 range, what advice do you have for me? See, two things. One is you'll have to increase attempts. So try to look at how you can solve 3 questions more in every section. So 3 questions more every section, 1 error less in every section will take your score up by around 13 marks every section. So you do that across 3 sections, you are 40 marks plus. Do that twice, from 80 to you do go to 120, you go to 160 next time. You are up to 99 percentile. So please understand this. When you take your mock scores, when you start taking your mocks, your score will start getting stuck at a certain level, and from that level, taking your scores up becomes the biggest challenge. And if you can perceive what to do there, you will actually be able to break through, which a lot of people are not able to. So to give you a hint on that, which I think is very important, and we are running out of time, so I'll give you this hint, and that hint is that you actually need to make sure that whatever you are getting, whatever your score is, suppose you're getting 90 out of 300, and your target is to get to 160. Your first target should be to change the edges. Try to focus on how you can do 3 questions more every section, and try to remove 1 error. 3 questions more, 1 error less. You will get +9, +4, and net score of +13 extra. So, and if you do that across 3 sections, then 80 becomes 120. Then you solve this. So stabilize there at 120, and then you solve the problem again. How do you get 3 questions more? How do you do 3 questions more? What basic work do you need to do? Look back at that, you'll find the answers. Right? You can take my books, Shaunak. They will give you the idea of what to do. Right? I'm just looking through more questions. Sudeep, poor at verbal. I told you you'll have to improve your comprehension. Ayush asked me how much time should ideally be taken to complete a chapter like geometry or algebra. Geometry, I think, is around 50-60 hours of work, and algebra would also be similar, right? If you're going through with a teacher, maybe a good teacher, maybe it might be slightly shorter, but I think it will be around 50 hours of work each. DILR is not about chapters, it's about question types, so you'll have to perceive the question types as you go ahead. Utsav, maybe you need to prepare once more if you've gone through the entire theory and you don't remember. That's natural, it happens for everyone. Is your book for DILR sufficient? Jaspreet is asking that. Yes, it is. I believe that. As I said, all possible scenarios asked in CAT last year were part of what my books actually gives a student a chance to learn. Right? Is it worthwhile to solve parajumbles since they are now theta type? They have definitely become tougher because they are theta. So you can actually take a call on that based on whether you can see the answer or not. Right? Otherwise, you can focus on the comprehension. Reasoning oriented DI part, as I told you, challenges in reasoning and the past year CAT papers and ZAT papers will give you enough experience of that from my DI book. IFT is Purnima is asking difference between strategy for IFT and CAT. IFT is a speed exam. It's more of shorter questions, so focus on that. Geometry, I'll just give you one small tip. Learn to visualize the formulas. Don't memorize the formulas in words. Right? We don't have much time to get into more of that. Grammar and vocabulary, yes, Pulkit, but grammar, no. Focus more on RC and practice, and through your comprehension, improve your vocabulary. LOD 3, as I said, is important, Mukul, for most, for half the chapters, for the critical chapters. DILR, you'll need to do the LOD 3 because everything is LOD 3 now there. Right? Ayush, if you're weak in quants, go through the LOD 1 first, then move to LOD 2. I give you the strategy. Anybody can change himself. Those 3 question types. Right? Any other, I think we are done. I think the webinar time is also over. So I hope you guys enjoyed this session, and at least I was able to give you some critical aspects of CAT prep. Yeah, the DILR editions are out now. They will be out by early next month. Work experience, Pranav, something which is, if you have it, it's good. If you don't have it, it's fine. You will have to work with it. Right, so I'll wind up then. Thanks a lot. I enjoyed being with all of you. It was, and I hope I was able to give you something of value. I had to make a decision about whether I wanted to go into strategic issues or I wanted to go into hardcore teaching of something, but I thought that hardcore teaching of some topic might really not make sense, because this was a big group of different kinds of students, which is why Kirti, as I said, your target should be around 3,000-4,000 questions of quants, around 400-500 questions in DI and verbal, and DI and LR, and verbal on need to basis, depending on how you're doing. But your balance should be on a weekly basis, right? So just make sure that you are. Yeah, we'll be scheduling more sessions soon. Yeah, thanks a lot, Amkesh. Thank you. Minimum WorkX maybe 1 to 2 years. After 1 year, they start considering WorkX. Below 1 year, they don't consider WorkX. Thank you so much. I'll wind up then. Thank you. Good night. Bye bye. Have a great time and max this exam. It's very easy. Thank you. Yeah, we will. No, teaching sessions difficult to organize because teaching courses are 30, 40, 50 hours long. Not have that time to do it. Don't worry about whether IIM Lucknow is doing it or IIM Bangalore is doing it or which IIM is doing it. The papers are more or less same. I've been tracking this exam for 25 years. I've not been able to find out. Anything anybody tells you is a myth. Take it from me. Right? Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Yeah, we'll organize some seminars in our CP center.